What's going on, everyone? John Ramdeen here in the FN studios, and there's some interesting stuff going on in the news today. As the Stockton Bad Boy is hoping to become a fight promoter, Overeem could return to competition as early as August, and J-Lo will put on his dancing shoes for a date with the Menace. Those are your day's headlines. Now it's time to dig through the stories. Former Strikeforce welterweight champion Nick Diaz has apparently began the process of applying for a promoter's license in California, according to a California State Athletic Commission official. The promotion, tentatively titled War MMA, still has a lot of red tape to get through before the first show, but the CSAC representative did say that the background check done on the former UFC title challenger came back clean. So I guess Diaz really will be trying to sell wolf tickets. Former K1 World Grand Prix champion Alistair Overeem is planning to make a return to mixed martial arts at UFC 164, which is scheduled to take place at the Bradley Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on August 31st. The 32-year-old Dutch fighter last saw action at UFC 156, where he was upset by Brazilian behemoth Antonio Bigfoot Silva. No opponent has been named for the former Strikeforce heavyweight champion. And finally, UFC on Fox Sports 1 got some hometown flavor as Ultimate Fighter alum and Massachusetts resident Joe Lozon is set to take on Blackzilian Michael Johnson when the two meet at the TD Garden in Boston on August 17th. The two fighters are coming off losses and are in desperate need of a victory. Joining me now, my good friend, Mr. Robin Black, and Alistair Overeem coming back to competition. And I think this is a very good thing for the heavyweight division, considering how much what this guy brings to the table. He's a big, strong, heavy striker, and fans love gigantic athletes like Overeem.
Yeah, I mean, he's a cartoon character. He's like a cartoon supervillain who kicks you in your liver when you've had surgery like Brock Lesnar did. He's an exciting striker. He's an exciting character, a little bit polarizing. Always there's been talk of him being a steroid guy. In fact, he's failed a test before, so he adds a little bit of that kind of debate as well. But this is a very legitimate striker, and you're right. Having him in the heavyweight division is very important.
Especially when you consider that, the number one guy, everybody recognizes Cain Velasquez, the current UFC heavyweight champion, as the number one fighter in the division. Junior Dos Santos close behind at that number 2 spot, but the rest of the division is kind of up for the taking. Sure. Alistair Overeem, with the big victory over a top guy, could quickly get to the top of that list and maybe challenge Bigfoot or Cain Velasquez in the future. And I think the heavyweight division needs some new life.
Yeah, Bigfoot just kind of wrecked the plans. Like Alistair Overeem was supposed to go in, beat up Bigfoot, we'd all be terrified of him, and he'd be the next title challenger. Bigfoot went in there and said, no, nobody just goes and beats a Bigfoot. I'm going to knock you out. And now he's the title challenger. I mean, all of these guys, there's some parity in the heavyweight division. Outside of Cain Velasquez, a lot of these guys can beat each other on any given night, and having Overeem in there is awesome.
We got to talk about one heavyweight that's not fighting in the UFC right now, Josh Barnett. Says last year he was offered a contract by the Zuffa-owned promotion. He turned it down to kind of explore other waters, but right now he says he's willing to go back to the negotiating table, and he feels that the UFC is the place for him.
Yeah, and it is. Josh Barnett was in a good spot. Everybody kind of knows him. He's a great talker. He has a lot of sizzle. Hardcore fans are interested in him, and he's an easy sell for the fringe fans because he's such an entertaining guy, and when he gets on the mic, he can really make fans. You can tell kind of what happened. He went out, talked to the UFC. They said, here's the offer. I said, okay, thanks. Just hold on for a second. Checked out what else was out there. Doesn't look like there's anything else, so let's make that UFC deal.
He also, you would have to imagine that after he got that contract with the UFC, he said there was one little sticking point. So we went out, tested the waters, and I'm sure there was a conversation with his good friend Matt Hume from AMC Pancration, who happens to run ONE FC. I'm sure that there was some sort of deal put on the table there. But I think for Barnett, for it to be lucrative, I would imagine he would want to go and fight in other places. Start at ONE FC, maybe make his way over to maybe the World Series of Fighting, and I'm sure Bellator was part of the conversation as well, but we know that those contracts are ironclad and almost impossible to get out of, so that's probably why he's going back to the UFC right now, because yes, I'm sure ONE FC will give him a place to fight, but it's not the type of money that he could make if he got to the highest levels in the UFC.
Yeah, and managing a fighter there's a lot of moving parts, man. You got to get it right. And, some of the research a manager has to do is go, okay, so this organization over here in the States wants to offer you a deal. How is their stability? How's their investors? Are they going to be around in 6 months? You don't want to go make a deal with ONE FC and be only in China and be looking to do something in America with a company that's not going to be there in 4 months. After testing all that kind of stuff out, the management would look at it and go, man, with the UFC, we make a couple $100,000 per fight. You know, we can build your brand in America. It's the biggest one in the world. It was worth checking everything else out, but this is where you got to be.
All right, we got to talk about Nick Diaz and War MMA. This guy's getting his feet wet in the promoting business. However, I have a feeling it's just more of the fact that this guy's a figurehead. He probably got involved with some guy with money who wants to promote mixed martial arts, and he feels that an allegiance with Nick Diaz will help him be successful.
And whoever this rich guy is that you're talking about is totally right. Nick Diaz is one of the most interesting people in all of sports, never mind fighting. And you imagine the conversation. Hey, Nick, we think we're going to start a fight. You want to be involved? Yeah, okay. It's got to have a ring or whatever, and you know, like no stalling. Like, you know, what is he going to build here? You know, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be fascinating to see. You know, it's going to be in a ring. There's going to be you know, penalties if you stall. I mean, if he's going to put his money where his mouth is and put on the kind of fights that he says he wants to be in and he wants to see, that's something we got to see. And that's something we got to try to air on the fight.
Yeah, I agree. And the fact is that they're in California, a hotbed of mixed martial arts. So you can have the Battle of the Bay with Cesar Gracie versus American Kickboxing Academy. Bring in some the Team Alpha Male guys as well as the Team Quest guys. I think if they decide to be a California-based promotion to build up the talent before they go to the UFC, they can be successful. Don't go anywhere. More Fight News Now Extra coming your way.